Ralph, if I was higher than you on the food chain, I'd fucking eat your face.
Hey, I'm going to tell you something right now, dude. It would be a tasty snack.
A lot's happened since yesterday.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting episode of A Lot's Happened Since Yesterday. This is a very special episode. We are going to talk cannibalism. Ooh. Ooh.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got some very special guests with us today. Erick Bee and Vicki V, and also our friend Michael Aronovitz. How's it going, guys?
Good. Never better.
This is going to be such a good fucking show.
This is going to be a great show.
This is one of those weird ones because we've been dealing some stuff with Michael. We've been doing some reactions. If you haven't checked out Rocker Reactions with Michael and the warning, you're missing out. Go do it right now. Fix your life. But we've been doing stuff with Michael, and this has become a little bit of a tradition with Erick and Vicki. We want to go down the craziness, and as Vicki likes to say, the stabby. We've done serial killers, and we've done other stuff like that. If you haven't checked those out, get to fixing. But this time, cannibals, I don't know, dude. I'm going to say this right now. It was never in my wheelhouse. I've never been, I usually my horror movie and my horror stories stay in the just serial killer, normal vanilla stuff. But when we started talking with Michael made a point that he's finishing his second book, which is about fucking cannibals. And so we were like, okay, we gotta get this shit together. So buckle in, people, because the Cannibal special has begun.
I like how we started this as a very special.
It's
it's like a Full House, very special episode.
Full House.
Let's pass around the A1 steak sauce. Let's get this started. Right.
Yeah.
And off we go.
Now, I also want to say this, and I'm going to do this for the record. Erick said he was going to show up with jerky covered in hot sauce and eat it throughout the show. But his wife said no, and I kind of have to go with Erick. I think it would have been fucking amazing.
Yeah. If I can take a quick commercial break, I'll duck out and grab some.
Well, who are we going to begin with, guys? Today, by the way, guys, we have two very interesting podcasters who have become our friends. Check out their show. It's Dark Sun Rising, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. It's a very cool podcast. They talk about a lot of dark shit, and so it matches the name. You know what I mean? And trust me, you're gonna like it.
Yeah.
You're gonna love it, actually. So I'm doing you a favor by introducing you to it. Also, we have a very he's been on our show several times. He's a good friend of ours, Michael Aronovitz. He's a horror writer. He writes music reviews. He does all kinds of shit. I think the guy might be a serial killer, to be honest with you. But,
hey, bro, I read some of your short stories. I'm not going to argue that.
But we're going to let them lead the show today because they really are the experts on this specific category. This what we're talking about today, which is cannibalism and cannibals. And so it's going to get dark because that's pretty fucking dark.
That's the point of this show. I mean, let's go hard to the paint.
I mean, cannibalism, is that the darkest thing that you can come to in life? Once if you become a cannibal, well, let's put it this way. You could kill somebody and maybe you'll feel bad about it. And maybe, you'll do some time. Maybe. You know what I mean? Maybe you'll do some time in prison, and maybe you'll come out of there and you go, I'm not going to do that again. But serial killers, not so much. And cannibals, I don't know. I think that's next level. What do you guys think?
I think it's kind of crazy when we talk about cannibalism as being the ultimate darkness. And I agree with you, Ralph. When I first think about it, that I wouldn't think to go there. Normally, right? I've done serial killers. I've done in my writing. I
see what you're saying. I thought you meant
Well, actually, I wouldn't think to go there normally. But when you think about it, like, look, I'm not a veggie guy. You know what I mean? I take a pill for that shit. You know what I mean?
I'm not a veggie guy.
And I like eating meat. Okay. I like
Okay, yeah.
eating meat.
Oh.
I'll take a chicken and I'll tear the meat right off the bone and I don't even fucking think about it. And because I'm higher up on the fucking food chain. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Ralph, if I was higher than you on the food chain, I'd fucking eat your face. I don't give a
Hey, I'm gonna tell you something right now, dude. It would be a tasty snack.
And we just found the intro to the show.
I mean, I've always wondered if I could do a show where I invented a new being that comes on the planet and they're one step above us. And then all of a sudden, when you go to the supermarket, you see yourself in the display cases, you know, like ribs and thighs and right.
And there's Ralph's head. And they're all, the cheeks are delicious.
And then there would be me without my head and I'd be running around like a chicken, you know? I mean, we put that meat on display, yo.
I know, dude. I know.
Yo, Ralph, come on, man.
I know, man.
I feel like it's the most natural place to go for horror.
It is.
You know what I mean? If you kill it, then you eat it. Right?
So do you think the two are connected? And do you think I'm going to ask the hard question here right up front. Do you think the two are connected? And do you think that we are somewhat cannibals on some level based on that? What you just said, you know, we eat animals. We do.
Mm-hmm. And we're an animal. I'm thinking of, Ralph, I'm going to answer your question in fictive terms.
Okay.
When you're going for fiction and you're trying to get, whether it's a shock or whether you're trying to do a scene of poetic beauty, violent beauty, it seems that I've never thought about it this way until this show, but a common denominator is cannibalism. You'll never fail. You'll never fail doing it. I mean, that's why the zombie movies work so well.
Yeah.
I mean, some people that are against it would say, right, the opposition, that it's just ugly target practice. But I'm going to tell you something, when you're writing it, doing a description like that, when you do pure imagery and you can describe what it's like to take a broadsword and slice down on the right shoulder and it makes that open V and the gummy blood is going like this and like, like silk. I mean, all of a sudden you have something beautiful there, man. I mean, it gives you, it gives you automatic description. But yo, Ralph,
now I'm convinced you're
making Eric drool over there.
There's no question in my mind anymore. You just answered my question.
And Ralph, you're always on my mind, man. I watched Cauldron of Deceit again.
I'm fucked, guys.
Yeah,
it's nice knowing you.
Well, fuck it. Since we've been talking so much lately, I went back and watched Cauldron of Deceit again, your song with Ravenscroft. And every time you were saying, "Can't you hear me scream?" I was thinking, yeah, I'll make a reason, baby.
Damn. A compliment. Huh.
They get deep, huh? Eric, what the fuck is going through your mind right now? Because this motherfucker is scaring the shit out of me. I just kind of want to change the subject.
So he's like a brother from a different mother. I mean,
And he's from
they're both in Philly
area too, man.
originally
Come
from
on,
Boston, but
man.
yeah, I live here in Philly. The interesting thing about cannibalism is, I think what makes it so fascinating is we think that we're, quote, top of the food chain, that we are the best and brightest, and that's why we got here. Cannibalism devolves us into animals and returns us, to our most basic instincts. It's literally now the law of the jungle, survival of the fittest. I think that's what makes it so vile, because we don't need to, quote, eat each other because we're carnivores. We're omnivores, right? Human beings, but we eat other animals that are, as Mike had said, further down the food chain, and it's plentiful.
Right.
There have been contexts in human culture and in history where food was not plentiful, so the only alternative was to then turn on fellow man for meat and survival. So it kind of depends on the context, as to, as they say, is what is quote the new normal, and how do I survive? So I think that's what is fascinating about cannibalism. Now, what we're sort of joking about is sort of like psychological depravity is how can a quote normal, and I use that term very loosely, human being become unraveled enough where cannibalism becomes something that they can rationalize as to why I did it. And that's something that Vicki and I talk a lot about is, people that commit murder, and they'll say, well, I'm dabbling in Satanism, or a demon possessed me and I murdered people and I decided let's have a tasty snack, or whatever the rationale was. And it's like, wow, that's awful. And you try and wrap your head around it. You try to, as I say, rationalize the irrational, and you really can't. It's frightening to most normal people because it's not like you understand societal rules that we all try to abide by. Some people choose not to. People who are in that lane of traffic, they don't abide by normal rules. They just make their own. And I think that truly frightens people. And hence, Mike and other authors that dwell in the realm of horror is, how can I completely remake the rules and take you out of your psychological comfort zone? And the ones that can do it the best are the truly gifted ones.
Well, I mean, it truly does spark interest in a lot of our minds. Not everybody. A lot of people are like, yeah, pop culture. But the rest of us, like the ones that are here on this show, we're interested, we're intrigued by this. I don't even know what to call it. I mean, it's just like, I don't know how, I know they say variety is the spice of life, but when do you decide, yeah, you know what? I'm tired of chicken. I think I'm gonna fucking, I think I want to try out a fucking human.
Well,
you know what I mean?
How far back do we trace this shit? Like, how far back does it go?
Indigenous cultures,
what I wanted
right?
to jump in on.
Okay. Vicki,
I mean,
please.
it clearly is a long part of history, and there's tribal nations and different countries that still do this. And I think one of the reasons why it's so bizarre to the rest of us is because our social construct has come to the point where this, the thought of eating another person is just a complete affront to what we believe now.
Right.
But there were certainly, places around the world that use cannibalism as part of several things, spiritual, religious, grieving processes. There's a lot of stuff where it's pieces of it. So, that's because our culture as a whole, generally speaking, has come to the point where something like that is just such a horrific idea that it's just taken on a different life.
It's like the ultimate boundary. You break that ultimate trust,
Right.
And it's like, it's even worse than killing somebody. It's a strange thing. It's like, it's like, dude, what else can you do to somebody? Oh, I'll show you, motherfucker,
Right, exactly. It's like weird, that next level.
Yeah.
The next level crazy, yeah.
I just think it's interesting that part of our culture is the vampire thing. And that's really erotica. I've never written a vampire story because I don't do romance. It's, I mean, seriously, all I've seen is of intimacy.
You're gonna be doing romance when you eat my face. Trust me.
No, it's just not where I naturally go, but that's what it is. So our culture, or at least pop culture, says it's okay to drink blood. It's sexy. But as soon as you start gnawing on the shoulder, there's something wrong with you.
That's interesting, because I never look at vampires as cannibals. I never have. I just look at them as vampires.
Well, it's a good point too, Mike, because let's face it, when something happens, you get into an accident and you need a blood transfusion, nobody looks the other way. You know what I mean? They're just kind of like, yeah, that's a normal part of life.
Yeah.
You have to replace that blood or else you're going to die. So it kind of coincides with the whole vampire thing. And they do romanticize it because they make it seem a lot less, it's not, you know what I mean? It's what's the word I'm looking for? It's not so
It's
like
romantic.
you're not cutting people's heads off. You're not amputating people. You know, the guy's just biting the girl on the neck or whatever.
It's a romantic death.
Yes, exactly.
It's considered sensual. It's like an exchange of bodily fluids. That's why it's so
Yeah.
erotic, because you figure the vampire, you can't get it up, right? He can't, he's a stiff that can't get a
Depends
stiff.
on which movie you watch.
Fuck, dude.
So essentially, his
I never even thought about that.
Vicky's not like, not in my movies, motherfucker.
You just fucked up my whole world.
Yeah, he
Vampire
can't
Diaries.
he can't get it up, so he fucking kills you and makes you roam the night forever.
I mean, you figure, right? His penetration is the fangs into this beautiful girl's neck.
It's
You're-
That's
absolutely
true.
right.
That's true.
That's
Yeah.
actually
So,
a very good point.
You have to look at it sometimes as a bird's eye view, so to speak, as to what's the overall picture. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, how? I guess since we're talking about vampires, where is the line? Like, at what point does it cross over to cannibalism? Is vampires cannibalism? They're drinking blood, or is it
Yeah,
specifically the eating of the flesh?
I don't know if
What
I've
the
seen
fuck
the
are we
films
talking about,
themselves,
dude?
but
This is so weird.
I've seen films. I've seen cuts from films where the vampire doesn't just sink in, but actually eats part of the
Ripping,
neck.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now I'm not really big on vampires, so I haven't seen like there was a big Netflix thing, and there's a whole legion of vampire stuff that goes like in different ways. I've never done a vampire story.
Vicky, are you into vampires?
So that's an odd way to ask that question.
Ah, what the hell?
I do enjoy the genre when it comes to movies and films and TV shows and stuff like that. Like, who doesn't love Vampire Diaries and all of those shows?
I've never even watched one episode. No. But anyways,
Not
go ahead.
1
I'm
second
sorry.
of Buffy.
I
What the fuck?
I apologize.
Buffy's
for
the king.
interrupting.
Buffy,
and
fuck yeah.
Angel Heart.
Buffy.
That's OG. That's real. That's real deal stuff. But
And
I
I'm
mean,
talking about
generally-
Christy Swanson Buffy.
Real stuff.
I'm a Sarah Michelle Gellar fan, but anyway.
Oh, come on. No Pee Wee.
So so that's where my interest in the vampire legend lore kind of comes into play.
Are you?
Although
are
we've
you
talked to people who believe they're vampires, so I was
really? Really?
yeah, we've had it all on our show.
But there's got to be quote unquote, I mean, not like immortal, Lestat, Tom Cruise type fucking vampires, but there's some weirdos who are like, yeah, I'm a vampire and actually tries to drink blood.
Yeah,
same
There
thing.
has to be.
You have willing participants that they actually are like phlebotomists. They actually train in phlebotomy, and they'll actually give up their blood and they'll put it into a chalice and drink it in a sensual ritual, quote unquote. They don't necessarily, grab the side of the neck, but they
Tony's
consider
face.
it a very sensual exchange of bodily fluids,
Yeah.
as opposed to having physical sexual intercourse.
Eric, do you ever watch that? This is a fucking old ass movie. Back in the
Okay, we're old
VHS
asses.
days. No, Faces of Death.
Oh, hell yeah.
Have you
Oh,
ever seen
yeah,
that?
man.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the jam.
Oh, that's a classic. That's a jam,
Oh
man.
that's my jam.
Yeah, if you ain't seen it, something's
no,
wrong.
no.
I
but
want
there-
to put music to that one day.
No, but there was one I remember watching where they actually had a dead body and
I remember that.
you remember that one?
Yep.
And they were eating it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? They opened it up. Eric, let's talk about it. You remember that one?
How
right?
much
I
of
know you
Faces
do.
of Death was actually real?
I know, right? That's the
No,
All
I mean,
of
that's
it
a
was
legit question.
supposed to be real. It was all supposed to be real, and they had the right theme because they start in a slaughterhouse, and they have the guy with his dirty smock, and he's going down the aisle in the slaughterhouse and sledgehammering cows. And we were talking about the chain of life and all that stuff. That's an example of it. I love that Faces of Death. That might be when I first started getting into horror. I liked Halloween 1. I was into that in 1978, but I think Faces of Death came out earlier than that.
I think
I
Faces
just-
of Death when I
that
first started
was-
getting into fucking therapy.
But I don't think I saw it when it first came out because I didn't
Yeah.
see it in the movies, and they didn't have VHSs in the mid 70s. That was an 80s invention. I think I'm right on that. So I must have seen it after the fact. but I think they were real. The one that I liked the most, I'm sorry, I laughed. It's so humorous to me. You have a newscaster, and he's down in Florida, and he's on.
Oh, yes.
Right, he's on the dock, and he goes, "We're here in Gator Country," and then
Oh, sweet Jesus.
right, and he goes, and here comes the sheriff, and the sheriff comes up in a boat, and his foot is on the prow, and he's got the hat, and he's like like a sailor, and that freaking gator comes up, takes him off the boat, and you see him flip over like the fucking Jaws movie, and I couldn't stop laughing. I thought it was the funniest shit I had ever seen. Thank God I never met his kids or grandkids or whatever.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and now they're gonna see this and be like, man, that guy's a dick.
What a dick. So that'll be my claim to fame. All of a sudden, people will just attack me because I attacked the guy on the dock.
Yeah.
What
That's what
a
they
way
do now,
to
right?
make
They're
it
gonna
in the
see
world
something that you
today,
talked
right?
about 20 years ago. Dickhead makes fun of guy who killed 20 by a gator 30 years ago. Fuck that guy. Too soon, bro.
But honestly, look, we talked about stuff that's possibly made up and fictional and,
Sure.
and stuff that's real. And this Faces of Death was definitely based loosely, I guess, on reality, because I think some of that shit was fake. What do you think, Eric? Was that one where they're cutting, it's like a satanic ritual or some shit, and they're cutting the body open and they start eating parts of the guy's organs? Was that real?
From what I've heard and what I've seen, I would say probably 90% of it was staged with really good special effects. I mean, it's kind of like cheesy production, but most of it was fake.
Mm.
There were occasions where they did actually have real death footage, but it wasn't like I'm actively killing somebody. It was like, here's a dead body.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, think about like the one where they're whacking the monkey over the head at that.
Oh,
restaurant.
yeah.
Yeah, was that real?
No, that was fake.
That was fake.
Really?
That was fake. Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, they basically
wow.
did like, think of like the Psycho shower scene where they had like
Making me
multiple
sad.
camera angles.
Yeah.
The same thing as they had shots of like the monkey and like a little soft little hammer going up to knock it in the head. And that was all staged.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
surprised.
I'm a little
I-
heartbroken now.
I think
think I
we're
wanted to
sitting here
believe that
laughing
was
at a
all
dude
real.
getting taken out by a gator, but don't you hit that monkey, motherfucker.
Well, hey, let's talk about the real deal. I want to bring up somebody that I'm a little bit more familiar with, but I want you guys to tell everybody the details because I know you know them. Jeffrey fucking Dahmer. Let's talk about him. You not like him, huh, Vicky? Yeah, you want to smack that bitch in the face, huh?
I've seen some of the greatest Facebook memes with his picture on it lately. Like, he's been all over Facebook lately.
Didn't he die in jail? Like a
Yeah,
guy
he
beat him up.
They beat him to death.
Beat him
killed
to
him,
death
man.
with like
Yeah.
a plunger handle. Do you know how hard you got to hit somebody with a fucking plunger handle
I
to
don't
kill
know,
them?
Mike. You tell me.
Yeah, do you know?
I mean, it's like a stick.
Eric's over going 372
It's
times.
like a drumstick. Oh man.
I think he might have chopped it off one of the edges, I'm guessing.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
probably made it like a
Sim
spear or some
style.
shit. Yeah.
So it's
But
a
you know what?
dagger. Yeah.
That guy had it coming. Look,
Oh, yeah.
don't get me wrong. I'm a big fan of the serial killer shows and whatnot. It's definitely something that intrigues me. But that guy, I guess, I don't know, how do I put it where people don't look at me and say, this guy's fucking a weirdo. But I'm
Too late,
looking at
brother.
it from the
I'm not
perspective
gonna look
of,
at you like that.
well,
We're already
it's
doing
like
it, man.
it's like
Okay, sorry.
I know, right? It's like with hunters. People go, well, if you're going to be a hunter, go after the animal, and kill it yourself and make it even as much as you can. Okay, so this is my thought here. This is my line of thinking. A serial killer, if he's not going to come at you and take you on full force and make it fair and make it even, then he's kind of a coward. And so, like shows like Dexter, I love Dexter. I just watched the new season of New Blood and I love it. But at the same time, I got to admit that he does what Jeffrey Dahmer used to do. He drugs people. You know what I mean? And so they're out. they're having a good time, they're having a drink, and then next thing you know, their head's in the freezer. You know what I mean? So I don't know. What are your thoughts about that, guys?
If I was writing fiction about it, Ralph, I would agree with you. I'd want someone more noble. No, dead serious, because that would capture my interest more than a coward. You're absolutely right. And in that case, real life isn't as good. I mean, Dahmer, didn't he invite like young boys over and then hit him on the head with a barbell from behind? It's exactly what Ralph was saying. It was total cowardice.
Yeah. He killed one guy like that. I think from what I understand, Eric, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think he drugged most of his victims with alcohol.
Yeah, he bludgeoned some and drugged the others. Correct. Yep.
No. Okay.
I think one of the things you'll find from most of the serial killers, at least from the shows that we've done and the conversations we've had, the majority of them are cowards. That's part of how they do what they do. There's only a handful, I think, that would be fall into the category you're talking about, Ralph, where they're, taking them on straight. So aside from the cannibalism part, I think they're all kind of fall in that same category. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to go back on serial killers, but I mean,
it's kind of hard not to in this case.
Well, with Jeffrey Dahmer, because he was a cannibal, right? We can all agree to that. So he was the one that was killing his victims and eating parts of them. So he falls into play with this conversation. But overall, yes, I think that it's not a bad thing to bring that up, because it's an interesting point. I wonder if you guys think, on a side note, I don't want to get off too much on a tangent, but on a side note, do you think most serial killers are cowards? People that are doing what they're doing to make themselves feel more powerful?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I don't think, the thing is, I think a big thing with serial killers is, at least from what I've seen, it's not about whether they're macho or not. It's about getting what they want. So it's like if they can do it easily, that just means to them they've got the ultimate control at the end of it anyways.
Taking the life is the part that's the control. So it doesn't really matter how they get there necessarily.
Yeah.
But I think, when we go kind of bringing it back to the cannibalism thing, I think it's important to sort of talk about the reasons that the cannibalism falls, that people are doing this. It's not necessarily they're just hungry. I mean, Jeffrey Dahmer wasn't eating these, doing these things just because he needed a snack.
Oh, absolutely not.
There was a whole level of other power and control that comes with ingesting parts of your victims, and whether it's, taking pieces of their soul and, whatever other, there's a whole variety of reasons that they do it. So I think that's kind of an interesting part of the conversation.
Let me pick your brain. Tell me what you think. What are your thoughts on why they do it? I mean, you're absolutely right. They could have some fucking steak or some shit, but instead
they could go to the grocery store like everybody else.
Slice up a fucking human being and there you go. So what are your thoughts, Vicky? Why do they do it?
Well, I mean, I think part of it, there's some ritualistic issues that come along with it. I think some of it has more to do with, again, that power that we're talking about. What is more powerful than not only taking that life, but then using pieces of it to then sustain yourself or to raise your own aura, like whatever random weirdness, they believe in. There's something specific about inviting, ingesting, and taking in parts of your victim.
Right. Now, is there always, this is going to sound weird, is there always nefarious reasons for cannibalism, or are there people who do it for what they consider a good reason? I don't know how to.
Eric has got some great information on that, so I'm sure he can share that.
Right. I mean, the funny thing is like what's called cognitive dissonance, right? Which is internally, I think I'm doing the right thing, but society says otherwise, right? That causes generally people great anxiety, which happens with a lot of criminals, serial killers, or just the average person. So you have to look at what context is the cannibalism taking place. So as Vicky had mentioned, is it religious or spiritual? Like, for example, within the last, let's say, decade, the tribes in New Guinea practice cannibalism. They believe that, like, for example, when relatives or fellow tribes members die, it's like part of the grieving process. They eat part of their body to guide their soul
Whoa.
into the afterlife, and then they take in like the wisdom of their ancestor back into the living relatives.
So it's almost like an act of respect.
Yes, exactly. And then
Wow.
also in war, right? You'll have the victor will eat, let's say, the heart or organs, let's say, of the people that they've just beaten as a way to gain their physical prowess and fighting spirit, right? That's like another common term. Just recently, within like the war in the Middle East, they had videos like on LiveLeak, right? Which is insane shit, of literally of people, you know, filming with the cell phone going, yeah, that guy just died, and they're just taking a knife and just ripping the chest open and eating the heart, you know, like you're snacking on an apple.
Oh, Jesus.
So
Good
within
God.
like, let's say the last 5 years that occurs in times of war. Then you have to think of times of famine. Like everyone remembers, for example, the book Alive, which was the Uruguay flight of, I think it was soccer players that crashed in the Andes. And they said, well, shit, we're going to die out here. And then they decided, well, we need to eat some of the people that died in the plane crash in order to survive.
Right.
Right. So Leningrad, Russia, China, places that had horrendous, even North Korea that had horrendous famine. People said, well, there's no actual food left. So do I A, eat the dead, or B, do I kill somebody and eat them? But then, so that's sort of like I can justify doing those things, right? Because the societal norm might say it's okay. And internally I can rationalize doing so.
That is.
So we have difficulty saying otherwise. That's when it's sort of like for sadistic or sexual pleasure, or you're just flat out batshit crazy because you have mental illness. That's that. I think that is what we have the most trouble with, because we can't rationalize the irrational. No, most crazy people aren't going to give you a great answer saying, why did you basically eat your mom's brains after you cut her head off?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, and,
Yeah.
you know, there is a sort of a regular societal watered down version of this. I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard of people that moms that have babies, they take pieces of the placenta and they ingest it one way or
Yes.
another, whether
Yeah.
some people make smoothies out of them, some people actually cook them and eat them, because it's supposed to somehow do something with, you know, the and it's disgusting and horrible, but it's really just a little piece of that same mentality of taking, you know,
Yeah.
the pieces of that and enhancing yourself so that you can give your child, you know, better
I don't
immunities and
know.
all that stuff.
I don't know, Vicky. I don't know if
I'm not saying I would do
look,
it, but-
listen, if I
but
was
it's a
working
thing.
at Starbucks and you walked in and you said, let me have a placenta smoothie, I don't know. I don't know what I would do.
Is that the
But
pink
I
drink
mean,
you're
if
selling?
the same, but it's the same ones that do all of the, you know, you've got your essential oil people and all of that, you know, holistic stuff. Those are the same folks that are doing that. So,
Wow.
you know, it's a watered down version
Ah,
of really the same idea.
Because I always cataloged that, like, cannibals and stuff, into just like either through survival or because they're just psycho as shit. But the more we were talking, I was like, man, there's got to be some religions that consider. Are there cases? I don't know ever, but are there cases where it was like, we're not going to kill somebody, but you offer literally a piece of yourself, and like ritualistic kind of thing of go ahead and slice off a hunk?
there
Keep
is
that
a
one,
tribe in India. The name I can't think of. I think it's something like Agoras. It's ARGHOSIS. I think I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but it's a sect in India where they basically eat from people that are already dead as a way to sort of recycle death, almost like reincarnation in worship of Shiva. That's really the only one that I can think of off the top of my head. Actually, no, I take that back. There was one modern case. If you remember the case of Ermin Mewis out of Germany,
I've never heard that name.
Tell
I've never heard that name.
right? No, you can Google this shit. So this guy was he was from Germany, right? As he was a former computer repair technician, a gay guy, and in the early stages or early days of the internet, this is going back in the early 2000s. If you remember this, there's a website called the Cannibal Cafe. You can find it on the
Oh,
Wayback
wow.
Machine.
Oh,
Right?
wow. I remember that.
Yeah, it's still up. You can go on the Wayback Machine. I have it bookmarked. I can pull it up now. And so he wanted to meet another gay man who was interested in cannibalism. So he found this guy who said, "Yeah, I'm into cannibalism. I'll come meet you for an adventure." And so this guy visited Mewis, and they willingly, he said, "I'm doing this because I want to." and they cut the guy's dick off,
Jeez.
and they ate his penis together. Right? Nothing like
Wait,
a
he
bonding
ate
moment.
his own dick?
It was like a Frankfurter.
Yeah, the two guys.
Like, hey, you want a hot dog, pal?
They cooked it up and they ate it together.
Oh my God.
Then Mewis basically said, okay, you wanted to be killed. The guy's like, I'm ready. Put the guy in the bathtub and chopped him up.
Ooh.
And then
This is for real?
This is a real story.
Mike's like, this is for
Are you
real.
ready?
You'd be surprised, Mike.
Spell out the guy's last name.
Oh my God.
Here's the guy's last name. It's Meiwes. And his first
I need
name
to
is
write that
Armin.
shit down.
Armin. Yeah, write that shit down. And what he
Right
did
there.
is
I got it right here, man.
over the course of
You don't
months,
want your dick to be a hot dog anytime
This-
soon, Mike.
back off for 1 second. So he ate between 40 and 50 pounds of this guy's meat that he kept in his apartment, with just like saying, I'm kind of hungry tonight. And he would just slice off something, cook it up and eat it until he was finally caught. Now, believe it or not, even though the guy said, I believe on videotape saying, I'm willingly letting this guy kill me. In fact, I'm going to help myself die. I don't mind that I'm being cannibalized. The court still found him guilty of murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison in Germany.
Oh, shit.
Thank goodness.
Ah!
I'm
Guy's
surprised
not.
though.
But the thing is, the guy seems, quote, normal if you talk to him, but the guy obviously has a dark side. Now, you joked about eating the guy's dick, right? There is a movie out there. I believe it's called like Long Pig or Long Pork, because Long Pig is like the code word for human meat. It was a horror movie, and the premise was this was a sushi restaurant that they served what they called the Dicky roll.
Oh,
What?
shit.
Oh, I have to make sure I never order that one.
No, now I'm rolling back every fucking sushi meal I ever had. Did
know,
I?
me too. I was like,
Right?
"Oh."
Did somebody ever challenge me to
ruined
eat
it.
the Dicky roll like a joke?
Right.
And then I'm eating a fucking hot dog.
Eric has just ruined our lives.
The way
So
they like
you
the
know.
Dicky roll, right? You have some hot chick who would seduce a guy, ride him into orgasm, and just as he's about to blow his nut, slice the dick off,
Oh my God.
and then they
You
would serve it up
serious?
as the Dicky roll. I shit you not.
Uh,
Like I said,
Wait,
watching
wait, just so I'm
Cannibal.
clear, this is not fiction. This is actually shit that happened.
You can't make this shit up.
it's a movie. I swear to God.
Oh, it's a
like-
movie. Okay. I thought you were telling me like it was an
Dicky
incident.
roll.
Oh,
and
I
was
thought it was a true
motherfucker.
story.
oh, I wish that would.
I missed the
Oh,
first part, man.
I wish it was a true story.
So somebody
Holy shit.
actually thought that
My
up.
partner, everyone.
So somebody actually thought that up and said, this will be a nice piece of fiction. I thought the stuff I wrote was sick shit. That is good.
Well, I
Isn't
mean,
that
to be
re-
fair, if it makes you feel better, Michael, what you write is pretty sick shit too. So you're okay.
Thank you.
Like
Thank
I
you.
thought I was depraved, but then holy shit, I thought I scraped the bottom of the barrel, but someone else went
Oh,
went
wow.
one level down.
That's crazy.
Oh, my
man.
goodness.
That's funny.
So I
well,
can eat sushi again. We're good with that, right?
Yeah.
I know.
All right.
Yeah, not the wiener roll or whatever it was.
Don't-
Dicky roll.
Dicky roll.
Jesus.
I'd stay away from the raw tuna too.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh God, dude, come on.
Candy smells.
But yeah, because but oh God, I'm so glad that's
Oh,
not real
shit,
life. Because
that's
then I heard the
funny.
only thing I've ever like really Rob's done.
It's all-
We've
I'm
lost
gonna
him.
have to edit the fucking shit out of this show.
But no, the only thing I've ever even come in contact with when I was growing up, I'm out in California, so we learned about the Donner Party, and
Yeah.
just hearing the fact that they, ended up running two guys down and, putting bullets in their head to get something to eat. That's where my brain just shut off. I'm like, I can't comprehend it. I think we touched on it earlier. It pulls me out of horror movie and into just like, I don't know how to handle this information. You know what I mean?
So if you spend some time with Dark Sun Rising, one of the things that you'll find when we have shows where we either don't have a guest, authors, whatever's going on, we go straight to news from around the world and stories that, sometimes they're pretty recent, sometimes they're older. But you'd be surprised at how many of them involve cannibalism, which is why that's kind of our joking forte. But we run into a lot of murder stories where people end up either because they've backed themselves in a corner and they don't know what to do with the body. So that seems to be
Oh my
the
God.
biggest part. And then these are not serial killers. These are just regular crazy people.
So they're panicking and trying to dispose of the kill.
Yeah, like they end up dismembering the bodies and they don't know what to do with them. So they end up cooking them down. We've had one where it was a story about a wedding in some South American country.
Philippines.
Yes, where there was an altercation and one of the guests ended up getting murdered at the wedding. And so, it was one of those long weddings. So basically they cooked him up and served it to the guest. They didn't know what else to do with the guy. You know what I mean? So there's a big chunk of the cannibalism situation that we're talking about that is more specific and has religious and spiritual, and like there's real thought behind why serial killers and others are doing it. But then you have a whole other set of people that are just haphazardly murdering people, don't know what to do with them, so they just throw them in a pot.
Really?
Fucker.
It's crazy.
Wasn't there a case where they were selling?
I'm pretty sure
human
that's
meat?
been done in a movie too.
On what?
The idea of
yeah, it's called Wedding Crashers. No,
no, but wasn't there a real incident where they were actually selling human meat on the black market? Or not the black market, on street markets, meat.
the black market.
That story, I
Yeah.
think, came out of, I think it was like West Africa, where it's kind of difficult. There were certain stories that was like either a restaurant or a market where they claimed that they were having slabs of quote, human meat.
Really?
Yeah, but yeah, it's difficult because you're reading like an English translation of an uncorroborated story from a foreign country.
right.
And by the way, I got some steak seasoning.
Nice. Nice. Dry rub?
Well,
you a dry rub guy for your human meat?
Exactly. Get a dry rub.
The funny thing, the dry rub. The funny thing is that a lot of these Asian cultures, and I'm not putting down Asian culture, but a lot of them do eat animals that we consider domesticated,
Mhm.
and we wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
That's, you know what I mean?
Well, that's
dogs
the
and
big thing
cats-
about the Wuhan area, isn't it? They have a
Yeah,
market that
yes,
serves all these
exactly.
weird kinds of meat.
And the biggest thing about that bothers me is that they have, so they go through this system where they steal dogs from other people's houses. You know what I mean? And then they boil them alive so that the meat tastes better. And that's, to me, that's really going above and beyond if you really want to go to hell.
Again, that
But
gets into
anyway,
a cultural thing. So
yeah,
I was
it's
watching.
true.
So side note, in relation to
Okay.
what Ralph was just saying, because just now I'm creeped out by it. I was watching a special. Gordon Ramsay has a all around the world cooking show where he goes on these adventures and meets chefs from different countries everywhere.
Mhm.
And recently he was on one where the local delicacy was guinea pig.
Mm.
And so they rotisseried it up and all that stuff. And that's just one of those, it's like, but again, remind you that these different cultures, they look at eating very differently than we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And my whole thing is like, I can kind of rationalize. I don't like it, but I rationalize the idea of eating a dog. It's an animal. It has meat. There's cultures who are going to eat it. The fact that they think boiling it alive and making it suffer makes it taste better. Fuck you. That's fucked
well,
up.
look, we do that with the crabs, and we do that to all kinds of other stuff.
I don't agree with it with crabs either.
Right.
I'm just like,
I
put
don't
it
think
out,
it's
man.
right, but
Yeah.
again, that's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
They were eating camels in a different country on the same show.
Yeah.
Camels.
Yeah,
were
Shit, I
wild.
think they eat
just
kangaroos and shit too.
when it comes to writing fiction, there are some unwritten rules, and if you kill a dog in an American short story, you're going to
It's
get
done.
you're going to
Yeah.
get crucified. And it won't be why did your character kill the dog? It'll be why did you
killed
kill the dog?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what? They kill dogs in a lot of horror movies. That's like almost like the go-to, isn't it?
Halloween 1, man.
Yeah.
Mhm.
because
And,
it's straight to the heart of all
Yeah.
of us who
Yeah.
are
I think
grown up
that's
as
it.
animal lovers. Yeah, it's
You're
like
right.
it's
You're right,
one
Vicky.
step down from the person that's gonna
I
get
mean, my
killed.
God, they made an
Sometimes even
entire
worse.
action series out of it. And Keanu Reeves is making fucking gangbusters in money because they
Yeah,
killed his
that's
fucking
true.
dog and he went and killed them all.
Yeah. He did.
Oh, that's the Wick thing, right?
Yeah, John
Yeah.
Wick.
yeah, John. Wick,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he killed them all, dude. At least that's the story. No, but yeah, and even you think about it, Secret Window, one of my favorite Johnny Depp movies. There's a scene where what's the actor's name?
Johnny Depp.
No, the other one, the guy that's
John
his
Turturro?
nemesis. Yes, thank you. he comes in and there's a scene where he goes, Johnny Depp is all, you killed my dog, man. You know what I mean? And I'm just kind of like, yeah, that's it right there. People
That becomes
don't
the
like
ultimate
it
villain.
when you kill their domesticated animals. And
Yeah.
so that makes it interesting, because I wonder what makes it okay for you to eat chicken and cow and pig, but you're not okay with eating dog or cat or humans.
It's a good point.
It's an interesting question. isn't
And now I'm wondering about you, Ralph.
it? Yeah!
He's sitting back going, yeah, why can't we do that? But we're in the movies though. But if we're going to talk about movies and stuff, then they've pulled this shit. You know, Eric talks about the Dickie rolls and all this shit. But you know, a lot of this stuff that's pulled from like real life. I mean, I know, was it Hannibal Lecter was pulled from
Right. That's a good one.
a
to bring
mixture
up,
of Ed
Cody.
Gein and somebody else, right? Or did they add the
think so.
cannibalism to it?
They enhanced the character. I'll put it to you that way.
Okay.
It's
Artistic
loosely
liberties.
based on Ed Gein, but like a much richer character, because the guy was a genius who was also a surgeon, but had a very, very dark side. So I mean, it made it for a much more interesting character than just I'm a quote a cannibal.
And that's why he was such a great antagonist. My favorite book of the trilogy, because Silence of the Lambs is the sequel. They made a movie in the 70s called Manhunter based on the Red Dragon.
Yes,
And
I saw that.
it was the same kind of thing. You had Hannibal Lecter in jail, and the foil for him was the killer on the outside. And he was the one who was killing families and putting let pieces of glass in their eyes, and he lights a candle and it looks like they're alive while he's sitting there with the dead bodies. And you could tell when you read that first one, it's pretty good. And Thomas Harris, to me, his whole appeal is that it sounds like an FBI report. And that's why it's so scary, because it's so real. And then you could tell he was really starting to get his process down in Silence of the Lambs, but Hannibal is his best book, and the third one. And in that one, much of the book is talking about how much of a scholar Hannibal Lecter is, and how he can lead us through Venice or wherever he runs away to, and talks about music and art and literature and the whole 9 yards. That's the appeal of the book. And it's also a nonstop chase scene. And boy, do I love that whole trilogy. But Hannibal, you won't be able to put it down. Now, a lot of people didn't like the movie because Clarice Starling goes over to his side.
Right.
I liked it better in the book than I did the movie. What I was going to talk about with the cannibalism there, and I think you mentioned something where the guy is still alive. I had never seen that before until the movie Hannibal.
With
and
the pigs,
book.
right?
It's right. He has his arch nemesis sitting there, played by Ray Liotta, by the way, and they're sitting there having a conversation, and he's cooking something up, and he's making it perfect and seasoning it perfectly. It looks like a lobster, on a hot plate. And he brings it over, and they start eating it, and they pan the camera back, and there's a square cut out of Ray Liotta's head, and he's been serving parts of his brain, and the guy's still alive. From a dramatic standpoint, that was just unbelievable to me.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of the Faces of Death, the monkey thing, where they're smashing the monkey's head.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're eating fresh monkey brains, and they're like, hey, fresh monkey brains. Anyways,
but it is a thing in other countries.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. So, but no, that's a good point. I remember that movie. And when you talked about it, the character of Clarice was changed up in that movie.
Yes.
It wasn't.
She went to the dark side.
Well, it wasn't the same actress. What's her name again?
Oh, Jodie Foster
Jodie
played
Foster.
it.
But
she wasn't in the third one?
She
No,
was
they
in
changed
Silence
her.
of the Lambs.
I can't think of her
she
name
was not
right
in
now.
Hannibal.
Yeah.
She was not in Hannibal.
Oh.
It was a different actress. She had red hair.
It's been a while since I saw it.
Name. But yeah, you're right. Ray Liotta was in it.
Mhm.
And you were talking about Red Dragon, right? Which was
Absolutely.
Ray Fiennes. And that was a really good movie, I thought.
Right. They did a remake of Manhunter.
Oh, is that
was
what it was?
It was a much slicker production. It was in the 90s, I think.
Now, was he a cannibal?
Mhm.
He was. Oh, okay. Shit. I don't remember that.
That's
Okay.
what's called Cannibal the Cannibal.
Wow. Oh, Hannibal. No, but I'm talking about
No,
other
the
dude.
killer.
The Ray Fiennes.
No,
the-
Red Dragon guy
Ray
was not.
Fiennes- yeah.
The Red
Hannibal
Dragon
wasn't-
guy
yes.
was not. He worked in a photo shop.
That's right. That's
Right.
Yeah.
And he would stake out a family, and for whatever reason it was, I can't remember what the reason was, which is the most important point of the movie. I'm sorry. But he would stalk families, and he would kill families and act like they were his own
That's
for that
right.
moment.
He did
Yeah.
videos editing is what he did. And then when he would watch the video, he would see the family and he would see certain things that would allow him to go. "This
Right.
is
It was
how I'm-"
Super 8.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Super right. Oh my God.
So while we're kind of in the pop culture frame on this, something I was thinking about, it's just kind of interesting how the whole zombie genre
Yes, thank
has
you.
changed. You know, if we take it back to the original Night of the Living Dead, where the reason that was so scary and so horrible was because the zombies were eating people.
Right.
Now, flash forward, 50 years, and you've got, The Walking Dead and all that. And although the zombies are still amazing and scary and cool and all that stuff, you sort of don't focus on that anymore. I don't know if if you guys are fans of the show, I'm sure
100%,
after
yeah.
about after the first 5 minutes, you kind of forget that they're still eating people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's in
You're
the
absolutely
first
right.
couple
They
of
don't focus on it as much anymore.
Yeah.
The first zombie movie was called White Zombie, which is probably where Rob Zombie got that phrase. It was 1932, and I don't think there was cannibalism in that, but it was like voodoo in a trance thing. But the first movie, you're absolutely right, Vicky. The first movie with the flesh-eating ghouls is what they called them. I don't think they called them zombies. They called them flesh-eating ghouls. That was originally written by Richard Matheson, and his book was I Am Legend, which they made later with Will Smith. But that movie was groundbreaking. I saw that in high school. I saw that in college. With the English major.
I wish they'd have kept the ending of the book in the movie, honestly.
What was the ending of the book?
The ending of the book is like they flip the script and he's actually the monster because the new world is full of zombies. And so they actually find out that as I recall in the book, you basically find out that these zombies are actually the new norm, and he's the one who's been stealing their children at night, and he's the subject of their horror stories.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
I may be
Well,
wrong. If I'm
glad-
wrong, I'll probably get yelled at. But as I recall, that's how I Am Legend ended in the
I
book.
think that's all a bunch of bullshit that you just made up.
Probably.
But
I've been
anyway.
known to talk on my ass. But no,
Look
but
at
to
the
Vicky's
big
point though,
brain
you know,
on Mike. Look at the big brain on Mike though. He's fucking telling us some fucking information that I'm like, really? I didn't know
Yeah,
that. Oh,
seriously.
I'm a college professor. I studied my notes.
but are they? Do you think they're pushing the zombies more away from the cannibalistic approach for that reason? Because you're right, like Walking Dead now is more like a vampire idea, like less about getting eaten and more about you got bit, so you're infected, so you're gonna be a guy.
Right.
Because when it started, it had that.
It's almost, it's almost as if the cannibalism part, I guess, maybe our view as a society, as a culture, although it's still gross and weird and it's not as shocking as it once was. It's not as violent and horrible. Like that's not the fact that the zombies are eating the people in Walking Dead is really not the scary part. It's the living in the world where it's like that, and the relationships and all of that. So it focuses differently, obviously.
Yeah.
But at the same point, I think there's a little bit of cultural view that has changed about the topic.
And
Meaning we're desensitized?
Also, we've come.
But yeah,
I'm
a
sorry.
lot actually.
Oh, it's all right, Mike.
No, I'm saying that the 80s was, I think it was the 80s and the 90s were really big on cannibalism. And you're right, it has switched.
Mhm.
It has changed. But I'm sorry, I made a list. I got to read that. Listen to this. All right. We got Silence of the Lambs, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Hansel and Gretel. Oh, okay, I threw that in there.
Mhm.
Still the same though.
The Hills Have
Different.
Eyes,
Mhm.
Motel Hell, It takes all kind of critters to make Farmer Vincent fritters.
About a week ago.
See, now I'm even more worried about it.
Right.
Wait, what'd you
I
say,
might
Eric?
actually I'm sorry, guys. I gotta go.
Then the Wrong Turn, Night of the Living Dead. But then these
Wrong
were
turn.
my three favorites. Cannibal the Musical, 1993.
What?
Yeah, no, it's a real fucking movie.
Oh shit.
Cannibal Cheerleader Camp, 2008.
Nice.
Nice.
Cannibal, and this is the one I'm going to go right out to my video store. Okay. Oh, they don't have those fucking anymore. Cannibal Hookers, 1987.
Wait.
I mean,
Oh man.
we're more fascinated with the idea than we thought. It just creeps into the conversation,
Yeah.
no matter what point, no matter where you sit with horror.
I don't know, Mike. Cannibal Hookers. I'm that kind of makes me happy that Blockbuster is closed.
Again, I mean, that goes back to the as a society, we're desensitized to it. And
Yeah.
because we've seen so many movies there, the reason that those things are in the movies is because it's supposed to be the most horrific thing a person can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we've watched it so many times in every version of Cannibal Hookers and whatever else there is
Cannibal.
that, it's not as scary anymore. It's not as far-fetched. But yet Eric and I are still finding stories daily
Really?
about real people that are really doing this. So there's sort of
Wow.
the conceptualized pop culture version of it that we see in the movies, we see in TV and all that stuff. And then you have, the Jeffrey Dahmers of the world. So
Yeah. There's not a lot of shows or movies now that have this topic, you know what I mean, as a main point. When Vicky was talking about The Walking Dead, they don't really focus that much on the eating of the flesh.
And they
Not
used
that
to.
much.
Like they used to give
Yeah,
you the
what I
pan
mean?
shots of
Beginning,
them
it
around the
was-
body
yeah,
and tearing it
Exactly.
apart.
So I wonder if political correctness came into place. What do you think, Eric? Did it
I
have
think-
an effect?
A little bit. And I think also we've become desensitized. It's sort of like what's new and cool. Like if you remember, like for example, vampires. They were supposed to be like the ultimate predator, right? Like let's say in the comic book and then the movie Blade, right? Frost, who is like the antagonist, says, "Yeah, these people are our food," right? Because basically we were considered cattle, and then they became shiny and romantic characters. It just like I'm not an Anne Rice fan, so I don't see them as romantic
Oh, shit.
role-playing goth stuff. It's just like, oh, kill me.
Might be too soon.
Then you have like Twilight. It's like, oh please, I'm
Yeah,
done.
no, I'm with you on
Done
that one.
And you got to think of like how many times can you tell the same zombie story and still make it fresh? It's like,
Yeah.
okay, we get it. It eats people. It like, for example, you figure back in the 80s, was it Night of the Living Dead, where it was like they had to eat brains, fresh brains, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know if it was
And
that
that-
one, but they even wasn't there one where they would even go brains and they would like make
Exactly. It took place in a cemetery, and there was like a government experiment that spewed out this gas that made the dead rise, and they all wanted brain. And that was considered scary. Then you think of like Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, like the Dead trilogy, where they're in the underground bunker in Florida, and all they're like experimenting on the zombies. Yes, it's the gore at that time, but then it's also it sort of transitions at some point to, okay, I get it, the gore, it's kind of boring. Then they sort of transitioned over to the human element, like Vicky had mentioned, which is, okay, how does human society deal with the zombie outbreak? And how do, like, you think of like in The Walking Dead, it's, okay, we're the good guys trying to reestablish civilization. And then there's other assholes out there that have other plans. It's scarier thinking of the assholes that are not wanting civilization, that want to harm us, versus the zombies. The zombies are just sort of like almost like the background contact
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
It happens with everything. It just ebbs and flows. It starts off with the gore, and then it just kind of softens to what's the human element. There'll be something else in a year or two that'll be the next fresh thing that'll go complete gore and shock value, and then it'll soften.
Yeah, that's true, because
Mike-
that's the same premise as like with Saw movies. When the first Saw movie came out, everybody was flipping their shit. Now we're up to 7 and they're like, did you see the newest Death Trap? That was cool.
It's like 3D virtual reality, and you're like, okay, yeah, I've been there,
Yeah.
done that. that trap was lame. The first one's just dismembered in 3D, and I'm like, whatever. Let me go refill my popcorn dish. No, Mike, being an author, right? I have to ask, right? I mean, like everyone says, you write what you know. So I did, like I said, like people, they look at me and going, oh, you look like the average nerdy guy, 50 years old. My background's in clinical psychology. They're like, you must be super normal. I'm like, what? You have no idea what goes on in my head, and hell, you would not want to know. Because I have a lot of sick shit that just rattles around in my head that I know I can't express without ending up in jail. So you found that avenue, I'm imagining, to put it on paper. How do you, like, if you said, I'm going to write about a serial killer, it's almost like been there, done that. It's been done a million times. What approach did you take for your book, The Sculptor, that made it unique, that's going to stand out on the shelf?
I don't think it has anything to do with plot. It has to do with the moment by moment in the trenches. Oscar Wilde had a quote, and he said, there's only 5 plots. You've probably heard this paraphrased before. There's only 5 plots. You know, you have a rich guy fall in love with his maid, you got a plot. What makes something unique and different is your moment by moment with the characters. Now, that being said, I am very plot oriented, and I'm kind of going down a rabbit hole here. But I also discovery write. I mentioned Richard Matheson. He believed that you have to have the last chapter finished before you start. And I can't write that way. I'm a discovery writer. So I don't love the process. For the first half of the fucking book, I'm worried that I'm not going to be able to do the second half. And with The Sculptor, I don't know exactly where I came up with the idea. It was a short story first. I wrote it in 2011, and it was about a serial killer who, and you know what? You write what you know. I worked for a summer in the supermarket. I was the manager that was in between the day manager and the night manager. And I'm a college professor. So I thought, if I had a serial killer that's going after co-eds, maybe he's a security guard on a college campus, so he has access. And if he's a security guard, he has keys to every closet, so he can get to the flag poles in the ROTC. He can get to the flag-based stands. Then he works in the supermarket, so if he can rip off a cold box somewhere and keep it in his truck and sneak it in at night when he's the only one who's packing out and putting the shit on the shelves, supposedly, he has access to the meat room. And he can take the dead co-ed and he can reanimate her to make his new sculpture. And then he can put her on the flagpole and put her on the highway, and he's haunting the highway with his scarecrows. So that's where that started. And you're right, it was from something that I know. At the same time, I don't believe in hyperbole. I know a lot of writers who are like, you know, I've joked with Ralph and Cody about this. The policeman walked in and saw the victim was stabbed 50 times. And I'm like, why don't you just give me one good one? I mean, why do we need 50? And you know what? There's a big difference between horror movies and horror books. The movies tend to be schlocky, and they're only going for the scare moment with a lot of flat characters. The books tend to be more literary. So the audience for horror books is very much like the heavy metal niche audience. You'll never kill it. It's like a cockroach. Sometimes it's going to be popular and then it goes back down. But there are always indie labels who are going to support heavy metal. And there's a whole community of indie horror specialty houses who never die. They always do the stuff that's the best. And it's a weird combination, because if you write horror, as I'm 60 years old, so I'm an older guy who is still in touch with the 14-year-old who listens to heavy metal and loves monsters and horror. But what I bring to it is what you said. I'm bringing it right back to you. It's the human element that's scary. It's not the jump scare. It's what we'll do as humans and to survive, and what we'll do to love and to save our loved ones. And the sculptor's big thing is he picks his targets and wraps them into a psychological warfare where they're aiming at each other. and he watches them become savages.
Oh, good God.
Because I got the copy of the book that you said. I did not have time to read it, but I did read the first page. I joke. I tell my wife's an avid book reader, and I say, look, if the book doesn't get me the first 25 pages, I don't care how much I pay for the book. I'm putting that thing down.
You know, I'm praying it fucking got you on page one.
This is like within the first 5 lines where the girl says, "Daddy," there's like a dead girl in our front garden.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, shit, like that grabbed you right by the ball, right? In five lines on the first page.
Thank you, man.
Interesting. That made you said, oh, okay, that got me. And I didn't have to go beyond that because I was just, like I said, I was just rifling it through real quick, but that got you right by the balls, so to speak. I like what you said about horror movies. It's a visual medium. I like books better because you have to do all the visualization up here. It's almost like, I'm sure you've read The House of Leaves. Right?
No, I haven't.
Oh, holy shit. Yeah, read that book, House of Leaves. Because they talk about like this darkness, this monster that they think is chasing them. I'm just going to leave it very general. In your head, you have to sort of visualize, well, what is that creature, that monster that is chasing them? If they ever make it to a movie, you know they're going to fuck it up because it's going to be, this is literally what I think the monster is going to be like, as opposed to in my head, it's probably 100 times more frightening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, you mentioned about making scarecrows, right? It's basically like the rising sun as the drivers are like zipping down the highway going, you know, my morning coffee, you got to get to work. And it's almost like flowers of, as the sun comes up and it shines on them, and someone's going to look over and go, either, holy fuck, what the hell was that? And then just keep going. Someone's going to go, oh, holy shit, I might want to call somebody. It is genius. But then making them scarecrows, it's almost like, quote, posing the body, as a lot of serial killers do, which has some meaning, whether it's to sexually degrade somebody or I want to point east because it has some sort of religious connotation, but it's almost like flowers of some sort. And I thought that was something different. And I like that.
Yeah. See, this was based on a short story. And I actually, in the sculptor that you read the first page, I insert that in the middle as a false manifesto. But the scarecrow thing is what the media comes up with. This guy disfigures their faces in the meat room. And in the short story, it turns out the reason why he does it is that he studied pointillism back in the day when they did that. So it just looks like a bunch of dots, but when you go away from it, it has a different meaning. And the reason he puts them on the highway is that before the cops show up, he estimates that he'll have 250 virgins that go by before they take down the body. And if you're going at 50 miles an hour, you'll see one kind of face, and then her face will follow you in the rear view. If you're going 70 miles an hour, you get a different face doing different expressions. And that's the way that part ends, which is funny because in the novel, it ends up being just a piece of misdirection. So you're really not sure why he did it. And all the scarecrows are in the backstory.
Well, Vicky, this would be great since you can do some reading. You have that piece about the reporter from the New York Times that actually ate human flesh and then wrote about it.
What?
Yeah.
Let me see if I
It
can
was
find that here.
back in 1931.
Here's an interesting question, and it's probably an easy answer. But, you know, obviously you can't kill anybody. But is cannibalism considered illegal?
No.
It's not.
Nope. It depends. That's a big depends. For example, there was a guy named William Gibson in the UK. It's not illegal to eat human flesh. It's illegal to kill somebody, but once they're dead, it's not illegal to eat their flesh.
You just have a lot of explaining to do if they find out you have it.
Well, the thing is, he actually did a performance piece where he actually walked around in public eating human flesh that he had cooked.
What the fuck?
Yeah, someone had actually donated tonsils, and then
Tonsils?
the body part that I'm sorry?
Did you say tonsils?
Tonsils.
Yeah, someone had their tonsils taken out, so he had that, cooked them up, and was eating them as he's walking around with like press following him around. The guy's name was William Gibson. There was another guy that was a performance artist, I think it was like Japan, who basically cut off his scrotum and then said, if you want to come and taste it, I'll cook it up as a piece of performance art. He basically castrated himself and then cooked it up. And they I'm sorry?
I said, why didn't he be a musician? Why did he cut his ball sack off for?
You go figure.
Yeah.
There was another guy who lost his lower leg in a motorcycle accident and decided to take that meat and cook it up into basically tacos, invited all of his buddies over and said, hey, remember that time we joked about cannibalism? Well, now we have the opportunity. He was allowed to take his severed limb with him, and he cooked it up and put it into burritos and tacos and made it for his friends. It's not illegal.
Holy shit.
I think it would be illegal to have did his friends know that? I guess his friends knew that they were eating that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Because I imagine there might be some legality issues if you didn't know that's what you were being served.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Oh God. Yeah.
I just wondered, do like dudes taste good?
Ah,
Like chicken, they say.
Like chicken, right?
Well, not exactly. That's what Vicky had. She has a piece of, like I said, it was a New York Times reporter back in 1931, had the opportunity and then wrote about it as to what the experience was like.
Oh, dude.
Take it away, Vicky.
Yeah.
You guys
Hand,
wanna hear?
hand is that, Vicky.
Okay. In 1931, a New York Times reporter named William Seabrook asked an intern at a hospital to get some human flesh from a fresh deceased body. He cooked and ate the flesh. He described the taste as, it was like good, fully developed veal, not young, but not yet beef. It was very definitely like that, and it was not like any other meat I have ever tasted. It was so nearly like good, fully developed veal that I think no person with a palate of ordinary, normal sensitiveness could distinguish it from veal. It was mild, good meat, with no other sharply defined or highly characteristic taste, such as, for instance, goat, like high game, or like pork might have. The steak was slightly tougher than prime veal, a little stringy, but not too tough or too stringy to be agreeably edible. The roast, from which I cut and ate a central slice, was tender and in color, texture, and smell, as well as taste, strengthened my certainty that all of the meats we habitually know, veal is one meat to which this meat is accurately comparable.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
So not chicken, veal.
Veal.
Oh
Wow.
my God. The part that got me was the stringy part.
Yeah.
That brought it home. That made it real.
Well, so he's basically describing human flesh as being somewhat gamey, right?
Less gamey, but
Less
more gamey
but-
than like regular beef.
Right. Wow. Okay. Nice. Thanks, buddy.
Appreciate it, man. Glad
Now you
took one
know,
for the
right?
team
Now
there.
we know.
Yeah.
The funniest thing is that's the way that Albert Fish, who's the sadist, who was also a cannibal, he liked young girls, and he said that I'm going to be completely disgusting. He said the ass meat was his favorite cut.
Well, who's not? No,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. No.
You an ass man, Mike?
You might have to edit that one out, bro.
Maybe you're
Sorry, dude. Go.
Yeah, my bad.
I'm sorry. I cut you off.
I know.
I just couldn't help it.
But yeah, he liked to cannibalize people, and like you said, young girls and their ass meat was his favorite cut. And he mentioned it was kind of like essentially almost like what Vicky described as sort of like a stringy, gamey kind of beef that he enjoyed. Yeah, and he even shared his recipe, quote unquote, with how he liked it prepared.
Motherfucker.
Man.
Now, when you say young girl, you talking about like little girls?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Fuck this guy.
Ooh.
I mean, generally fuck this guy, but like really
fuck this guy.
Yeah.
Fuck this guy. Yeah, fuck this guy.
Absolutely.
I thought
Where's
you were
the
talking-
wait?
you
Where's
know.
the dividing line? If she's a junior in high school, it's all right.
Well, no, I mean, okay. Next question. I didn't want to go down that road. Fuck that.
He's not even gonna put this in the show.
Nope,
trust
I don't
me.
even. No, I will, but I don't want to touch. I'm not touching that one with a 10-foot fucking pole.
No, yeah, no shit.
But yeah,
And
Google it.
neither should have he. But yeah, no, you're right, Mike. Though the stringy part was what got me too. That's like wow.
Well, is it
I don't-
weird that I find it a little, to me, and it's just me, it bothers me more that he was able to go to a hospital and be like, hey, dude, cut me off a hunk of fucking meat. And they're like, sure, dude, we don't care. You know
there you
what?
go.
Yeah, I don't. Oh, like I can see that. That's my thing. It's like I guess I could see why it wouldn't be illegal, but I guess you would just really have to have a very good reason why you would have human meat ever.
Out of that story, that's the part that bothered you.
Yeah, honestly, yes. I don't know why. I'm like, okay, it tasted like veal, but they just gave him a hunk of dead guy. What the fuck?
Here, have some dead guy.
Actually,
Sure.
I have one better for you, which is out of Baltimore, Maryland. It's Joseph
hometown.
Roy Methany. He actually died in 2017. He, like I said, was in the Baltimore, Maryland area. He would basically capture prostitutes and drug addicts, bring them back to his trailer, murder them, butcher them, and then he actually grind them up and served them as in barbecue, and served them as barbecue sandwiches.
Unbeknownst to his
People
patrons.
did not know.
Oh God.
You know what that convinces me of, Eric? It
Yeah.
convinces me that, like, my mom died in 2013, but she, God bless her, but she was the type of woman, picture me, but older and a woman with a perm. And she would, right? And she would.
No offense, bro. I don't really want to picture that.
She would walk into a restaurant. Picture this woman. She walks into a restaurant with her coat over her shoulders and goes right up to the maitre d' and says, I don't want too much salt in my tuna. I want you to lower that music. I think the air conditioning is too much in here. I want blah, blah, blah. And she complained the whole night. It just made me think, like, never complain in a restaurant, because you don't know what they got back there. You don't know what it's like, a Forrest Gump box of chocolates, right? Oh my goodness. And I worked in a restaurant once where a guy brought out prime ribs, and you know the customers really gave him a hard time, and he came back into the kitchen. He put the tray up on the stand there. He took every one of them off, put them on the ground. He says, have you ever seen the flamenco? Did a flamenco over them, right, with his feet, put them back on the plates. He says, heat these up. They have to be more well done. And, you know, Miss Edie was working back there. She didn't give a fuck. And she was like, she put them in the oven for a couple of minutes, put them back on. He walked them back outside and stood there while they ate it. Right? How do you know you haven't eaten human remains at one point?
I was going to say,
you'll
you know,
never know.
they have
How
those
do
weird
you know?
statistics that's like, you have, you know, in your lifetime, you've had this % chance that you've actually come in contact with a serial killer walking down the street. I wonder if there's a statistic that says you have this % chance in your lifetime of being fed human flesh without knowing it.
Have you eaten at Taco Bell?
I love Taco Bell.
Your
It
chances
tastes a
have
lot like
increased.
veal.
Well, we talked about Jeffrey Dahmer, and I know that he doesn't seem like a favorite of our panel here, but he's definitely, he's one of the creepier ones in my opinion, because he kept fucking frozen body parts in his freezer, you know?
Yeah, did Dahmer do it for the cannibalism, or did he do it just for the murder?
I don't know, but my understanding, and of course, Eric will be able to give us more information on this, but as far as I know, he worked at a fucking canning company, didn't he? Eric, am I right about that? Didn't he work at like a dispensary of some form that canned meat?
That could be right. I don't remember that particular detail, but his sort of MO was that he struggled with the fact that he was gay. And that didn't sit right with his family. And so then he became an alcoholic, and he couldn't, again, psychologically deal with it. And so he said he felt very lonely, and he basically patrolled gay bars and stuff looking for gay men for sex, but then he didn't want them to leave because then he would feel lonely again. And so he justified killing them, whether it was bludgeoning them and or drugging them. So then they would stay, and then he would kill them and then keep their body parts, which to eat later, because then by ingesting them and being part of him, he would never, quote, be alone.
Was that from the jump, or did he evolve down that path?
That's where when he started, that was his MO. Like at first it was, he brought back guys for sexual encounters. He'd say, yeah, let's have some beers and whatever, and back at my place. And then he didn't kill like the first guy he brought home. Eventually he hated the fact that they left and then said, oh, I got to make them stay. And when they said, oh, I kind of want to go, like, no, you will stay. And then he started killing them.
And he's also the one who was trying to, he was injecting them with shit, trying to turn them into zombies and shit, right?
So he had one guy, I believe it, one person that actually escaped from his apartment. He drilled a hole in their head and put like bleach and something else, some kind of acid into the brain to make that person into essentially a controllable sex zombie. It was like a 17-year-old kid who was from like Southeast Asia, if I remember it right. And he was wandering the street. So people called the police and said, what the F? There's this kid walking around. He's incoherent, half naked. The police showed up. And then Dahmer ran down the street to get him and just basically said, yeah, this is my boyfriend. He's a little drunk or a little high or whatever. The police didn't really give a shit. They're like, you know, lovers quarrel amongst two gay men. I don't really care, essentially. And they were just like, just take him back to your apartment, get him off the street. And then he butchered the kid.
So the police let him take him.
Yeah.
Back.
Fuck.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Nice job.
Because again, they
guys.
didn't push it. They figured it's a gay, a quote, a gay thing, and they just didn't really want to get involved, which is horrible.
That's
Jeez.
crazy.
So in your best, and I'm going to leave this to mainly Vicky and Eric, worst cannibal guy in your opinion, or the one that's crossed your table that even you are like, motherfucker.
Crossed your table.
Oh.
With some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Yeah, right? That's a strange question, only because it's been going on since ancient times. I can't really think of, quote, the first one unless you go back into literally, like, it's even in mythology.
No, worst one, not the first one, the worst one. In your capacity, what is the worst one?
Katherine Knight.
Okay, I've never heard of her.
Vicky, go. I know you got that.
I got the notes. Okay, so let me tell you about our friend.
Oh, you
Katherine.
have notes on this person, but you don't like cannibalism. Is that how I'm supposed to understand this?
No one said they were my notes.
Oh, okay.
These are the notes that we have put together. So Katherine Knight, in 2000, she was a housewife that stabbed her husband, John. Then she hung his body from a hook in their living room, skinned him, decapitated him, and cooked parts of his body in a dish with potato, pumpkin, beets, zucchini, and cabbage. Then she put out 2 servings of John for his children when they got home.
Oh.
Thankfully, the police arrived before they consumed their father, though his head was still found stewing in a pot of vegetables on the stove. She became the very first woman to be sentenced to life in prison in Australia.
That chick
Wow.
is crazy.
That's fucking crazy.
You know, the biggest thought in my head is, how the fuck do they know what other ingredients were in the fucking soup?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, what the
It's a big
fuck?
stew pot.
Yeah, there's some sick guy going, I gotta know. This broth looks delicious.
Yeah, it's got that's definitely
We're gonna need the recipe,
zucchini
please.
right there next to that dude's eyeball. You know,
Right.
I would have
Yeah,
used capers personally.
Yeah.
Pumpkin is an interesting choice. I will tell you that.
Oh shit! Oh fuck!
But
Well, guys,
can you imagine the cop that had to go to that crime scene? I mean, that's just like a little blurb out of a much longer story that we put together and discussed. But could you imagine being the cop that has to go to that crime scene and go, well, holy shit, what the hell happened here? Then be the detectives that had to piece together what the fuck happened here.
yeah, no doubt, man.
And how do you
That's
interview
crazy.
somebody like that? Like, how do you sit down and go, tell me what the fuck, man? You were going to feed this to your kids, let alone do it to your husband?
Oh, she claimed that she didn't know what the hell happened, that she was asleep, because she was actually in the apartment asleep, in the house asleep, and they had to wake her up going, you have any idea what the hell was going on? They're like, nah. It's like I said, just matter of fact, like she was crazy as fuck. And she was in denial. Like, I have no idea what the hell happened. Yeah, it looks like there's a mess out here, but I don't know. But then they just
Good
kind of pieced it
God.
together with forensic evidence. And like I said, she is on death row.
You got to watch out for sleepwalkers, man.
Yeah.
They'll fucking kill you in the end. You know what I mean? And then skin you alive and feed you to their children. It's weird. I don't know how that works, but anyways.
This was fucking awesome.
Yes, it was very awesome.
This is exactly what I was hoping for. I fucking love this shit. We went down so many different tangents, and like how the hell we go from, you know, dude boiling to her husband to people boiling fucking dogs to, I mean, we just touched it all. Screw it.
We touched it all.
You do know that we like music too, right?
Well, then I always say that. I told Michael the same thing. I'm like, we met you because of Any Given Sin. So I mean, we can talk about music, but we always seem to not.
You know, next reaction video.
You guys want to do a reaction? You're welcome.
there you go.
You guys are absolutely welcome.
Okay,
If-
then,
either
you're
time.
in.
Absolutely.
We'll
Pick
bring
the
you
band and
in.
let us know.
You guys, yeah, pick the band. Exactly.
But
This was so much fun. Thank you so much for having us, letting
Yeah,
us join you.
No, it was
It
great.
was
It's
a
always,
pleasure.
it's always
Nice
great having
meeting you guys.
on.
You
Yeah,
too,
if
Mike.
you-
We're
if
going
you
to be
guys
snagging
haven't
you for our
noticed-
show too.
say again.
So we're going to snag Mike for our show too.
Cheers.
Yes.
Cheers to you guys. Yeah.
Anytime. And
We're in good company, guys. So
Ralph and Cody, thanks, man.
You
No
guys, thank you
problem,
so
brother.
much for coming on.
Anytime.
Vicky,
I
Eric,
thank
Michael,
you.
if you guys haven't figured it out by now, we love you guys. You guys are great.
Yeah.
We make great content. I love the shit we talk about. We need to do another one of these crazy, insane subjects. We're moving off of
exactly.
Cannibals. What's the
What
next
do we
one? We
call
gotta think it. You know,
Anytime.
Cooking
But-
with psychopaths. I don't know, but
Ooh, I like
you
that. That was
know.
good.
Cults. Let's do cults next time.
Colts.
Cults. Oh,
Colt, you heard it here, people. We're doing Colts. We're gonna go down the Colts
We're doing
rabbit hole.
cults. Yeah.
I like it. I'm in. We're doing Colts. Michael, you're welcome back if you want to come down and talk shit about Colts. Get some inspiration for your books. I don't whatever you want to do, brother.
I'll go to the library and get prepared.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you go check out Dark Sun Rising Radio with Vicky and Eric. They do all of this stuff all the time, and yeah, that's what they are, and they're great, and we love them for it. Michael's apparently going to be on soon. Go check them out. Make sure you support Michael Aronovitz and his books. I mean, I'm sitting here pimping my Dancing with Tombstones. I'm working through it. Love it. Make sure you watch out for the Sculptors 1 and 2, fucking apparently. And Michael, you said it's probably not going to be called The Sculptor 2, right? You're thinking about that's just a working title?
Yeah, ST said that he didn't like the title, so I'm trying to, if anybody can think of something good from the little snippet, that would be great. He wanted to call it Three Sisters, but there's already been something done that has that name.
Okay.
I was
Well-
never good at naming stuff.
It's always the hardest part of any art for me, is trying to come up with a name that fits
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah,
But-
that's true. It is hard to find something that connects with it and makes sense to your fans. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah.
But at any rate, guys, make sure you support all of them. Thank you for joining us. Hope you had a great fucking time. I know I did. I love this. I love these people. Ralphie, I love you, brother.
I love you, bro. We had fun tonight.
Hell yes.
Yes. Peace, my brothers and sisters.
Check out the
We're
links
go-
below to support these fine people. They're amazing creators, and I consider them dear friends. I really do. And until next time, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Be good humans. Always fucking forward.
Forward. Be good humans. Be
Peace.
good humans.